Hello and welcome to the Movie Bunker podcast. It's me, Matt.
Hey, it's me, Chris.
Oh, and hi, I'm Matthew. I didn't know. I was like, do I do my own name?
No, this is what Matt does. He's going to introduce the podcast, but then doesn't start a natural conversation after you introduced yourself.
No, I like to just freeze people out, just instantly, invite someone in and instantly ignore them.
Yeah, brilliant. Matthew, thanks for joining the podcast. Matthew Highton, introduce yourself properly. That was a bit of a lame one, wasn't it?
You know what? We're in the middle of lockdown. I've not introduced myself for so long. You forget how. But hello, I'm Matthew Highton. Full name, middle name Ian, if you're interested. I am a comedian and filmmaker who loves talking film, hence, whilst I'm here. I tried to make it a bit showbiz, but then just sounded like, you don't know what you're saying. But yeah, that's me.
Matthew, it's a very strange time, isn't it, this whole lockdown malarkey? You're doing lots of these Zoom podcast things.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think I speak to people more now than I did before lockdown. Like, there's so many people just keep checking in, which I should probably wonder if they're worrying about me. But yeah, you see a lot of pixelated faces these days, don't you?
It's when they start messing around with filters, that's when it gets really complicated.
Oh, yeah. Should we let everyone in on what happened before this chat?
Well, I mean, yeah. Well, I mean, we spent about 20 minutes trying to write my head the right way around. My son's been using the Zoom to do a Cubs virtual meeting, and it put me in a lovely background in my house, my face upside down. So, yeah, as a 42-year-old man, I found it very difficult to rewrite that wrong.
It's the modern equivalent of taking the mouse ball out.
Yeah. Oh god.
My big takeaway from lockdown will be I'm very good at judging how far away 2 meters is these days.
You're one of the few, I think.
Well, this is it. So I think everyone has that innate ability now to judge 2 meters, and then some people just like to push the boundaries a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Well, we get to sit in and watch a lot of films, so it's all right.
Yeah, it's true. Talking about a lovely segue, Matthew.
Thanks.
The podcast is about critically panned movies or those movie guilty pleasures that aren't really guilty at all. The movies that are at the bottom of the Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb rating. Those are the movies that the Movie Bunker are interested in. None of these good movies. We ask our guests to find a film and then defend its honour. And you've come out fighting, I think.
Got a doozy.
What did you choose, Matthew?
I chose, and I genuinely love this film without any irony, but it's Annaconda, the 1997 powerhouse that is Snake Jaws.
All right, everybody, double check your gear, make sure it's all on board, and pray you didn't forget your bug spray.
They have come to the world's most isolated jungle to explore the unknown Amazon.
Ready?
I think so.
And conduct scientific research to prove the existence of a long-lost tribe.
Shama worship giant snakes, anacondas as gods, protectors.
What is this?
Anaconda skin.
Is snakes out there this big?
This skin is 3 or 4 years old. Whatever shed it has grown since then.
Snakes don't eat people.
Oh, they don't?
That's it, man. I'm getting the hell back to L.A.
It's always good to be prepared.
Now, they are the ones being watched.
Do you hear that?
The ones being followed.
Nobody move.
The ones being hunted.
There's something down there.
That's right.
No, I really mean it.
I really mean it too.
But not by anything human.
That's on the floor!
If we help him, then he will help us get out of here alive.
Get on my face!
You're gonna get us all killed!
It's coming down!
Annaconda. When you can't breathe, you can't scream.
It's an absolute cracker. I'll just read the plot synopsis for you quickly, because in true podcast fashion. A National Geographic film crew is taken hostage by an insane hunter who forces them along on his quest to capture the world's largest and deadliest snake. What a cast as well. I mean, this is a pretty impressive cast. For a film that came out in 1997, there's some really big hitters in this.
It's got it all, hasn't it? It's one of those beautiful films that only existed at that time, where people who are just finishing their music careers and starting their acting careers are using this film as a vehicle. And you have some people who are still not quite as big as they're gonna be yet. Like Owen Wilson has a very small role to say how big he becomes in a few years after that.
Yeah.
But,
as I like to call him, a very hot and horny Owen Wilson in this movie. He has a great line. I mean,
yeah.
So J-Lo, Jennifer Lopez plays the lead role, and Terry Flaws.
One of her very early roles, right?
Yeah.
And she'd done like Selena before that, and then this was kind of a big sort of lead role, Hollywood breakout, I guess.
She's really good, isn't she? Though in this,
J-Lo's great in this.
yeah.
She is like this is right. We'll get into it in a second, but I generally think there are some absolutely amazing performances with some of the script they've been given. Like Carl Fulton.
Ice Cube plays Danny Rich, the cameraman that's on this kind of voyage to do this Planet Earth type documentary about tribes people.
Children of the Mist.
Children of the Mist.
The tribe.
The premise and the setup of this movie is really good. It's like an Indiana Jones swashbuckling kind of adventure without, you know what's happening because of the title. You know what's going to happen. John Voight is in this, who plays the main henchman, or the kind of the main villain, who's bloody superb in this. And we got so much to say on this, I guess.
John Voight could have like a 15-part podcast series just of his performance in this film. I can't wait to talk Voight. It's going to be great.
Eric Stoltz plays Dr. Stephen Cow, who comes a cropper quite early on in the movie, but fresh off of probably, is it Pulp Fiction? He would have been. This is after that, and Killing Zoe. I want to say, what's the
Killing Zoe?
Yeah, he was in that.
Yeah, it would have been. Yeah, I'm just trying to think. Picture his IMDb in my head.
At the time, I mean, he would have been the sort of star. Him and John Voight would have been the star acts, right? They would have been the money in the wage bill for these two, because like he was is sort of at his ascendancy. The stellar cast now is one that would cost a few million to sort of bring together now. Jennifer Lopez and Owen Wilson would have been very cheap at the time, I imagine.
Jonathan Hyde, who plays Warren Westridge, is this very stereotypical English actor, thespian type presenter bloke, fop.
Dad in Jumanji, it's the same character.
Yeah.
This is happening in Jumanji. That's what you don't realise.
This
is the prequel.
Yeah. The thing is, like, the poor guys must have done many brilliant films, but whenever I see them, I go, "Oh, Jumanji guy."
Yeah. Dad in Jumanji.
Oh yes, it's Jumanji guy.
But he's great.
You imagine he's in every film where it's the British adventurer or the American adventurer in somewhere old that needs the British expert or villain.
He comes out with some classic lines. He does some really good stuff with the dialogue he's got, as you said, and his one-liners are like, he hits one of the baddies over the head and he says "asshole in one" because he's a king golfer.
That's like one of my few notes. I've actually got "asshole in one."
And he talks about leeches on his scrotum at one point as well. It's a really dry acting style he has. Danny Trejo is worth mentioning. Him, he doesn't last too long. Another spoiler alert there, but he is a staple.
Early Trejo as well.
Yeah, I think
it's hard to tell with Danny Trejo, right? Because he looks exactly the fucking same.
Yeah.
Has he ever been young?
The first thing I think I ever knew him from was Dusk Till Dawn, which I can't remember if that is before or after this. It's around the same time, isn't it?
I think it is, because he doesn't have a moustache in this movie. That was the first thing I recognised, because I think once he grew that it never came off, and still hasn't to this day, even in the old El Paso adverts.
1996, Dusk Till Dawn.
So the year before.
Before, yeah.
He had a shave then. But who knows when it was filmed. But the main star in this movie is Frank Welker, who plays the voice of Annaconda.
I am this is my. I did there's a thing called Boring Talks and they're this thing that used to happen in London. I don't know what happened post thing, but I did a whole talk, and most of it was on how Frank Welker is credited in this film. Whenever you get a creature film where there is some sort of scream or something like that, and then they get a voice actor in, I'm instantly into that film. I just watched by accident Five-Headed Shark Attack, I think it's called. It was on Sci-Fi. I put it on for 2 minutes just to pretend to my wife I was going to watch it, and then 2 hours later I'd finished it. But there's so many bits of five-headed shark screaming underwater. It's absolutely incredible.
Well,
How'd you get that job? I want to see, how was the audition process go? Do you go for Annaconda voice, or are you just generally there? It's scream. It's like,
he's in everything.
He's in everything. If you look at his eyes, I was about to take the piss out of the fact that they cast someone, and because I'm so not narrow-minded and short-sighted, I didn't until I clicked his bio, and he's in everything. Everything
from your childhood that you've
Transformers
ever watched,
cartoons. I think he's the voice of Megatron. Every 80s classic, as you say, Matthew. Yeah, brilliant.
So in 2013, this is a random fact, I did a bit of stand-up on Annaconda. And I say stand-up, I just very clinically tore it apart. In a very loving way. But at the time, Frank Welker, I think, had the 7th biggest IMDb for credits on the planet, and everyone above him was a porn star. Generally, Peter North was number 1 most credits, and then Frank Welker was the first quote unquote proper actor in at number 7, because he's done every voice from every cartoon ever.
So he does an audition. They come to him.
Yeah,
We need a Welker.
We need a snake scream. Oh yeah, I got it. I got it.
Like pocket scream.
Yeah, which one do you want?
Doesn't even stop in the sound booth. Just walks in one door, walks past the microphone, and then out the other door, collects his check into the next booth.
It's interesting though, isn't it? Because this exists pre-internet, when people really, pick into films. But I think this is one of the last. Even though there's so much CGI in this, this was one of the most expensive films made for CGI at the time. The 97, the CGI, if I remember right, was $100,000 for every 2 seconds of CGI they had. And apparently, and I've been trying to find this for years, there's a point where they release a trailer because they had to start getting press going for it, but they'd not finished the CGI. So apparently the first trailer they released, there's a scene where someone falls off a waterfall, and then they just stop in midair because they've not put the snake in fully yet. In the film, it just coils in. But yeah, it's so expensive. But they still use loads
snake.
Yeah.
Cool.
They still use loads of practical effects and stuff like that. But the creature design's great. So I read a whole thing about how they had to make it look more demonic and sound that's why they gave it Scream, so it would actually be sort of this presence instead of just oh, that's a big, quiet snake. They made the eyes look more frowned and stuff like that, so they constantly looked evil.
Well, they changed it as well to slit eyes as well, because apparently on IMDb it's saying that anacondas don't have slit eyes; they have nice round eyes, so they look more like a Disney little helper animal rather than.
I think that would have been more terrifying if they'd made practical anime eyes on it.
Just there blinked in the window.
Yeah, really adorable anime eyes on this horrible, massive snake.
It's surprising this movie has got such a low rating on both IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes. And I think the reason is, well, if you read the reviews from the critics, it is basically that the storyline and the script is nuts. But really, from the opening crawl, if you're not hooked by the opening crawl on its own and the panpipes, then really, you're in the wrong universe. Because the opening crawl just basically talks about anacondas and how they love to kill, regurgitate, and then kill again to eat it again. So they never really fully kill the person.
Some beautiful foreshadowing, though, isn't it?
They're going to get
it. That's all it is. It's just foreshadowing for the wink.
I think they did it. I think they had that, and they go, no one's going to believe this shit. And they go, opening crawl, what we'll do is we say this shit happens all the fucking time. Yeah. And then they'd be people be lapping it up at the end. But I read that and I'm like, is that fucking true?
Yeah, it's one of those things you just take for true. I realise there's a lot of things in this. I think I've in my head put in as like a fact. Like everyone knows the fish, the one that they say goes up the urethra.
Yes.
Yeah, the dick fish.
Like, but everyone knows it from this film. I think. I don't think before this film anyone was like conscious of it. I think that happened to maybe 2 or 3 people, and like, oh, that's pretty bad. But after this, it's like, yeah, no way I'd ever swim in the Amazon. No way.
Even if it's 2 or 3 people, it's not a risk I'm prepared to take.
I remember seeing it in something like some David Attenborough program when there was a native person. They showed a reconstruction of a native person weeing into the river or to the water. And this fish can actually swim up the urine stream. So you don't have to be in the water to be pissing. You can be pissing into the water and it will swim up and go in.
Yeah.
I think it's just a horrible said at the end. So he was sat by the edge of the river, a bit bored, sees this tiny fish, and he thinks to himself, I wonder if that'll fit in.
Are you saying this is like the Amazon equivalent of, oh, I was cleaning naked and I fell on it?
Yeah, exactly that. Go to the doctor's like, the fish thing swam in my dick again. It's like, really? Yeah.
We've had 6 of them this week. This is... I mean, that fish has got to have a lot of instinct if it's like imagine how hard it would be, even if you're a fish, to swim up a jet of piss. That is a lot of effort to go to.
It's like a
also,
salmon.
what are you looking at whilst you're pissing? What are you looking at? Surely you'd be looking at this sort of like, it must be making splashing, right? You
no,
can't...
it's quite small.
It's not like the size of a carp, is it?
Still, you'd be like, because I tend to look at it when I'm weeing. I think I'd notice even a small fish.
Maybe it goes so
up.
quick you don't notice, and then by the time you notice, it's too late. Yeah. I think you'd be making a bit more of a scream than that. I think you'd be asking for Frank Welker to come in and redouble the scream.
I think they missed a trick with the sequel here. They should have just had a massive one of those fishes just running around, jumping up people's dicks and exploding them.
And that's the tagline. By the time you see it, it's too late. This is the hard thing with this film, though. I can't tell if it's self-aware with its script or if someone's wrote, like, this is the action monster film of our generation. I can't tell which side it falls on. Like, same with like Congo and Deep Blue Sea. They're all in that sort of, I think you wrote this serious, but at the same time, you've got a gorilla who's signing with a robot voice. Like, you've got to be a little bit self-aware. But yeah,
the cinematographer's gone out of his way to try and make something that is pleasing to the eyes. There's a couple of bits where like the camera will be completely on its head, and it will do that slow rotate to come. And you think, wow, that's interesting. Because that doesn't need to be there, but it takes its time. It sets the scene. It's a really nice
Snake
flourish.
cam.
Yeah.
Again, like you said before, I don't know why it gets such a bad rap. Like it is stupid and silly, but there's so much love in it. Like there's some really, really good bits. The first time, I can remember the first time I watched it, I'd hired it from the video shop, and like Jaws was my favorite film, still is my favorite film. So yeah, I'm into it. Creature film, I'm going for it. And I remember when you see that shot after the first attack, Owen Wilson's gone, and you see where the snake swim past the camera, and then you see the outline of the body. And that, I remember being like, film has changed. Oh my God.
I like the bit where he's taken it, and I don't know if it's the Owen Wilson one or one later, but you kind of, it brings it up, and you sort of like the body, and then I think
the body, the silhouette of the body in the stomach. Yes.
Yeah. No, but it actually breaks the surface. It's very reminiscent of something in Jaws where they kind of like, and then there's the stillness again, and it is that's nice. They do.
It's
nice.
a lovely shot.
Eric Stoltz is dialing it in a bit in this film, right?
Yeah.
There is difference in the acting going on, isn't there? I mean, we know Eric Stoltz is a fine actor from previous stuff he's done, but he's not good in this at all. Whereas like Jennifer Lopez, Ice Cube to a degree, and obviously we still haven't got to John Voight yet.
But this is the weird thing. John Voight and Stoltz just feel like there is a sense like they got on set and they're like, oh, what is this? I'm just going to have fun. Like there is a sense like they've done something that everyone else isn't.
Yeah.
And like, but it's weird again because like Stoltz, he would have been the actor of that sort of film, but he is essentially out of the film for most of it because he gets knocked out, and then he's got a good chunk of the film where he's not in it.
Should we talk about how he gets knocked out?
Yeah, go for it.
It's a bit weird, right? So they've picked up John Voight, who's clearly fucking mental. I don't know what picked him up.
It's like a hitchhiker, isn't it? But on a Congo.
Yeah, but like more obvious than the hitchhiker. Like there's that one beautiful scene when she looks across and he's just like.
Yeah, I mean it's so menacing. It's so menacing.
Look. And so and then the rope gets caught up, and he's like. John Voight's like, I'll go down and sort it out. And then Eric Stoltz is like, no, this is my boat. I'm going to sort it out. So he gets fully doled up in the scuba gear to go like this far underwater. Sorry for podcast people. I'm doing like 6 inches with my fingers because he's down there fixing it. And you can see the bubbles breaking above his head, just above where his snorkel had been. So he's there fixing it. All of a sudden he just starts gyrating underwater, and they pull him out and they take away his respirator. And there's a wasp. There's a wasp, and it's stung him in the throat, in the mouth.
It's horrible.
Yeah. Where was the fucking wasp the whole time?
Isn't it the impression that John Voight's planted it? I always get that.
Yeah, but is it just waiting there? Like,
well, he's got one in. He's got one in a little matchbox in his pocket, which he just pulls out.
There's a whole hour they've cut away where John Voight just trains a wasp. That's what you don't see.
But he has to train it not only to stay very still in the respirator mouthpiece, but then to wait an appropriate amount of time to then come out and sting him. And for someone to feel something, and then like, no, it's ridiculous. There is literally no way you could get a wasp in someone's mouth unless it was instant. Like you put it in there, they put it in the mouth, like oh fuck.
No, it's the long con. He's trying. This guy is seminal insects trainer. It's in his makeup and blood, isn't it?
He knows the Amazon. You forget that. Yeah. He knows the Amazon. He knows if you put a wasp into a respirator, it's like quivering a crocodile's eyes. It's going to just calm down until it smells saliva. It's out of action.
It's out. He does a little bit of a quick thinking, doesn't he? By resuscitating him with the what's it called,
the tracheotomy.
Tracheotomy. Well done. When you cut the throat open and stick a big housing unit or a pen, if you like, into the throat so that they can breathe.
But what's the play there? Does he want him to be sick on the boat, or does he just want him out of the way?
He's taking control, isn't he? Without leadership, who knows the Amazon? Old Voight, he knows the Amazon.
And I love the way that Voight has a conversation with Owen Wilson's character Gary Dixon, and almost hypnotizes him to the point where he's like, on a dime, he turns and said, "I'm with this guy." And obviously,
mind tricks.
The same thing happens to Jonathan Hyde's character, Warren Westbridge. They're both basically hoodwinked very quickly into the plan, which is all along that Cerrone just wants to capture this big ass snake. And anacondas, I looked up on anacondas because this one's an incredibly aggressive one, but there's another one that turns up later on. There's more than one, I believe, but they actually don't eat very much at all. They only really eat every 4 to 6 weeks.
That's the real villain in this piece, both the greed of the anaconda and the greed of the people on the boat. The whole underlying message is a message of greed. Greed will kill you one way or the other.
The thing is, this snake, and then I'm really, really like splitting hairs here with the snake thing, but the anaconda would not hunt a person in the way that it does. So what's its beef? Is it to do with this tribal thing that they keep banging on about? Or
well, I mean, there's sort of that impression, isn't there, that this specific anaconda is native to this part of the Amazon and all that stuff. But also, like, not a lot of people are going up there, so maybe it's just a delicacy. Maybe it's like, I don't see a lot of people. I'll get a lot of these in. I'll regurgitate them later. That's a couple of years for me. So Voight's back.
Save up for the family. Like there's about 4,000 fucking anacondas of varying sizes knocking about. So
that's why he spits that monkey out, doesn't he? When they try and catch him with that monkey. I'm having that instead. So I've written monkey spitter. I could cross that one out.
I kind of got the impression that it was again a vengeance tale because they blew up that wall, that barrier, that random pointless barrier that wouldn't stop anything doing anything, especially not a 80-foot snake. But then like all the little baby snakes fly everywhere, don't they?
Yeah.
Which I'm assuming are its bad babies.
But it's,
so I thought it was just like fucked off. Like you killed some of my babies. you
do get the sense that like someone's really like the writing, they really actually thought it through. Like the idea that people abandon whatever it is, like a login station or whatever it was, because these snakes are there. I think the idea is, isn't it? It's like if we don't kill these snakes, bigger snakes will grow, and then there'll be more killer snakes. But given the fact you've got 2 adult anacondas, that's been happening anyway. Surely this is just a normal breeding cycle, and the lesson is just leave it alone, mate.
Yeah.
Just walk
Stay
away,
the fuck
guys.
away.
Yeah.
It's really good that we save at least half the podcast for Cerrone, which would be one of the main reasons for dipping into this movie, because his whole dialogue, the whole way he holds himself, his gait, everything about this character is amazing. He has one facial expression that really he just has it, but it looks different every time. It's like this.
That's because you have different angles. So it's one expression in different angles. So like there's the leery one where he pitches up and that's leery, and then there's the sort of menacing one where he's looking down. But it's fundamentally like a transfix, like it's very odd.
Oh, it's a hypnotizing performance. Like you said before, like I mean, I don't know how. Again, I don't know how much, he's chatted through with the director, like, this is how I'm going to play. Or if he's come on set, he goes, I'm just going to go for it as a joke. And they've gone, yes.
Nailed it.
Because, like, there's just bits. My favourite, I think that I've talked about this on so many things, but there's a line from Cerrone where he's tied up and he says something like, I wasn't the one who hit the Captain Mateo. Don't make me out to be the monster. And you're just like, oh my God, like everything is happening in this moment that if you're not on board by this point and that doesn't win you over.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Jumps up and strangles the
woman. Yeah. It's not even got to the climax yet. Oh, it's just.
The best bit from him, the thing where he's, they do this long con, not this long con, but they try to get him to, what do they try to get him to do? Well, Jennifer Lopez basically woos him to try and get
she uses the power of lipstick.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's a scene of her putting lipstick on, is like, which makes, I have to point out, fuck all difference to the way she looks like, because she puts on lipstick which looks like her lips. Yeah. All the lipstick she's been wearing all along. Who knows?
But he goes, once he realises he's being jumped, he goes in for that final snog. So he's like, I do get it. And he gives another quick snog before he's...
He's horrible. But that's like... He holds that film together because he is generally menacing. He's generally like disgusted in that film. So like it is like that. I think this sort of film loses a lot where you don't have that human sort of conflicts and that human threat. And I do generally think this film plays it really well. Like even though you want to see the Anaconda and you want to get the chase, they do the Jaws thing of keeping it hidden, setting up like something that's going to derail their plans and everything. The structure and the planning of this film again is absolutely on point. Like, but yeah, it's still very much a B movie, even though it was expensive as when they made it. Like, you just can't put on your finger. Like, what is it?
All the cast are likable as well. There's no, a lot of these crappy movies, the cast, whoever they are, you just don't like the characters. The characters, all of them here are watchable, and the 90 minutes that you spend in their company, and that's a good running time as well, is actually is really, really nice and comfortable. Not one of these people just think, oh, Christ, he's dialing it in. You just think, he's dialing it in, but it's still pretty good,
Yeah.
What this film made me want to do is it made me want to watch Lake Placid as well.
Oh, yes.
I was like, I just want to watch Lake Placid because it's very much similar to that. And again, but Lake Placid is really, you can tell they're aware, and it's incredibly well acted, and there's great jokes and gags in that. There is that doubt. You're like, oh, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they knew they were making this.
I don't remember much about the plot of Lake Placid. All I ever remember is at the end, the old lady feeds the baby crocodiles. I was like,
yeah,
oh my God, she knows, right? She's in on it. But yeah, that's all I ever remember from Lake Placid. But there's a beautiful like resurgence of 90s creature films where they do have pretty
this actual one, right? Someone's rewriting this.
Oh really?
On IMDb, yeah, there is actually like a reboot of Anaconda in the works.
There's about 60 sequels, I think, as well. That I've never watched a sequel. Yeah, but yeah, there is that weird thing before sort of Cloverfield hits in the early noughties, where there's a period of like creature films that are just this. It's almost family fun. Like this film, they wanted to get to a PG-13, didn't they? So they dubbed over all the swear words. Like there is that sort of sense where it's all very, very doesn't take itself seriously. It doesn't sort of want to be anything it's not. And like, yeah, Deep Blue Sea, like Placid, even the Godzilla, they're all sort of the same vein films where it's like a swashbuckling adventure contained. So yeah, it's great.
One thing that stuck out to me is that everything's big in this film, right? You've got the huge snake. Even the boat itself is big. They could never be accused of needing a bigger boat. Jon Voight's performance is huge. The only thing in this film which is not big is Ice Cube's tiny little knife. And they made such a big fucking deal of that. At one point, like he kind of makes the indication he undoes it in a really surreptitious way to show he's like this tiny little fucking knife, right? Like, should I? And it's like, no,
it's too big.
No, that will just piss him off. What are you going to do? Like, fucking use cuticles? What is the plan with this fucking knife? And there's a huge scene where they have a fight, and you see this like, he, gets knocked over, and the knife goes skittering over the edge, like it's their last and only hope of a weapon. But
that boat is full of things that'd give you tetanus in a heartbeat. You could kill yourself on literally anything on that boat. But yeah, amazing. Yeah.
Like earlier on, he was cutting up a fish with a machete. And there's like these hook things hanging around all over the place. So there's just so many weapons that would be far more impressive than this tiny knife.
I think they would have done better with the boom mic. That would have done better, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Anything. Just like, but this again is where that's what makes me think this is a very self-aware film. Like, even though they know where to focus in and stuff. They're aware of everything that's going on.
Yeah.
Like, because all the stuff that they all seem self-aware of, then they'll do something that just surprises you out of nowhere. Like the Jon Voight leap that we talked about before. That comes out of nowhere. That's like a generally horrible bit of film. They've argued it down to PG-13, and then that is horrible. Like
the way he stares at her while choking her out.
Yeah.
Does an anaconda get that big? I mean, I don't know much about natural history.
Yeah.
Do they get that big?
Not
you
that
saw
big,
it?
I mean, yeah. How big does an anaconda get? Okay, what's your guess?
Well, what was in the film? It's like 80 foot in the film.
I'm going to go meters because I can't really do feet. But
oh yeah, is it measured in feet or?
It's measured in feet and weighed in pounds, so we're screwed. But it's 29 feet. I've just given it away.
Oh.
Sorry, 29 feet and then 550 pounds. So what's that? 29 feet is roughly about 10 meters.
Yeah,
is it?
I'm going to say yeah.
Well, it's at least 4 Jon Voights.
Yeah, I'm going to now
laid head to toe.
Big is the anaconda in
Anaconda?
Yeah. You're listening to live Googling. It's 33 feet to. Hang on, there's no.
There's definitely 2 though, isn't there?
So they added 4 foot.
So it's the one in the film is so the biggest anaconda ever measured was 33 feet, and the one in the film they're saying is 40 feet.
It's still not massively different.
No, because it goes up that massive chimney at the end, doesn't it? And
I don't know. If you saw a human being with another human being on top of them, you would say that's a bit bigger than a human being. Like,
well, if you weren't at the circus, yeah.
Yeah. So like that's a Okay. That's a chunk.
Well, it's no wonder the reptile tranquilizer for veterinary use only didn't work then.
Yeah.
Love that bottle shot. It's like, what could it possibly be that he'd want to inject into the reptile? Oh, look, it's reptile tranquilizer. But surely it's not the over-the-counter kind. No. This is the veterinary use only kind.
To back off. If something says for veterinary uses only, to back off.
I've seen
that. A lot of my nights as a child was spent on stuff for veterinary use only.
I've been to a few music festivals where people have taken that sort of shit just to get them through the Travis set.
That's the over-the-counter stuff. If it's from a vet bag, you back off.
Yeah.
But there's that bit as well, isn't there? Is that around the bit when they do the tranks where it goes crazy and rips the boat apart? Apparently, the animatronics go crazy, and it just looks terrifying.
Yeah.
So they leave it in, and that's that bit, which actually happened on the set of Jurassic Park, but they didn't keep it in. There's a whole thing. I don't know if you guys know this about the T-Rex in Jurassic Park. So all these films that we're talking about, like Anaconda and Congo and everything, come off the back with Jurassic Park, obviously. But they had the animatronic T-Rex, and that thing was like so meticulously calculated. So all the animatronics in it were weighed and sort of measured and designed to work under every sort of circumstance. And so they tuned them. So they're so finely tuned. They tuned them to work on the set. But when they got on the set and they put the rain machine on, they didn't account for that extra little bit of water weight. So the T-Rex would randomly judder and like thrash about and stuff. And all the like crew thought it was haunted for a while because it just go, just suddenly come to life. And they had to retune it all to take into account the weight of the rain. So yeah, apparently
Animatronics doesn't have a good history, does it? Because in Jaws, the shark.
Yeah, exactly. Bruce.
Bruce. He bit someone's head off once.
Yeah.
George Lucas knew what he was doing, didn't he, with those prequels? He knew what he was doing. He just let a load of crap CGI in it.
Yeah, not messing around. I interviewed one of the puppeteers who was in the Jabba the Hutt puppet a few years ago for a Comic-Con, and he said it was the hardest thing. They were like in his history of doing puppeteering. It's like it was in the days of like because they're young, they're hungry, they're sort of making all this stuff. But he said that Jabba puppet. No radios really. It's like no sort of visual communication, just a radio. 3 guys in the puppet, and you're just hoping that you get the scene right. So that bit where he eats a frog, they said they spent about a day on that because every time they did it, it'd be like in the eye or in the cheek. It's just cased it over. They're just like sweating inside. But as soon as you work with something physical that relies on some sort of like either puppeteering or animatronics, there's no way that's going to go right first time.
No.
This is why they stuck Kenny Bacon to R2-D2, right? To make sure that I just think it's just some sort of weird torture porn because what did he do inside that fucking thing?
So
did
apparently, what's the guy who took over the new R2-D2? God, I should know this. Oh, come on, brain. It's going to drop in a second. Anyway, I interviewed him at the same Comic-Con. There was a lot of Star Wars people there. And he said a lot of it was just knowing how to rock the R2-D2 costume. Because like it sounds stupid, but he's like you've got very limited movement how to emote. Like so you've got like essentially like few movements you can do, but you've got to make that sort of excitement or that sort of worry and stuff. So it's all about rhythm and timing and stuff like that. It's fascinating. The guy who did BB-8 was saying like they had loads of trouble with BB-8, but the one thing that everyone talks about is BB-8 speeding over the desert, and you think that's all CGI and stuff now, but apparently they went so back to practical. That was the puppeteer, big old rig just running through the desert for about 40 takes as fast as he could, so they could get that all the sand flicking and stuff like that. Yeah. It's amazing. You can spot it, can't you, though, straight away when something's practical and people are reacting to it. So you can tell.
There is a lot of practical shots in this film, right? So it kind of stands out because, like, this is old now, right? It's 98. Was it 97, 98? 97. So 23 years old. The CGI has aged horribly, but the practical effects haven't. So, like, when you actually see the snake and they're puppeteering it up, it stands up. I mean, obviously, all the animals you could do. Maybe a snake's maybe potentially one of the easier of the of the puppet world. Is basically you just stick your hand in a sock and then you got yourself a snake.
I love the movie tagline on this, which is when you can't breathe, you can't scream, which is kind of apes on the old kind of alien thing, isn't it?
But they again, they know the history that they are coming from when they all that is personal design. I'll tell you something that I noticed on the IMDb. Don't know if this is new or it's always been there. But under storyline you get plot keywords. I only noticed this before. So you've got the usual ones you expect: snake, boat, anaconda, jungle, all the classic metadata. But the first keyword on IMDb is butt. Bum, as in butt. And I have no idea why. I was crawling back through the film. Is there a famous butt shot in this film or something?
There's very few butt shots in this film.
This has become my new thing when I learnt this was a thing on IMDb, going into the plot keywords. Because some you sort of go, yeah, but also why would you tag that? Like in this one, I've just gone in, you get the usual ones you expect, sexy woman, snake expert, human versus reptile. Then you get random ones like tied to a chair, gasoline, scar, crushed to death. You just got like 130 things where you're like, I get why you put that in there, but who is getting to Anaconda? Like, who's searching and goes, oh, what a film was tied to a chair? Oh, I've not seen this one. Oh, what's this one? There's sort of horror where it's gory and it's scary and it's like 18 plus, but there's also that sort of B movie that comes out of the 50s, which very much I think this is in the vein of. That it's just a good, fun film. It doesn't pretend to be clever. It doesn't pretend to be anything else, and it's such a fine line. Like that's why I think there's been the B movies, which is all that Sharknado and stuff like that, where it's really cheap, really horrible. But then there is this sort of film there's so much love and craft goes into it, but it's still appealing to that idea. You just want to see a big monster causing havoc, and that's what you're after.
But it's odd, isn't it? Because the director didn't really do anything else afterwards. I think he made one more film and then that was it.
Oh, really?
Right? Yeah. Just checking again on IMDb.
But loads of TV.
Loads of TV, but just one more film after this.
Yeah.
And it didn't, you didn't look at this film and go, Jesus, that is horribly directed. There's some really nice things in there. There's some unusual stuff. Like I said, we mentioned the twisting kind of snake cam, which very much puts you in the mind of the snake beforehand. There's also a weird throat cam at one point where you're like,
best shot in the film. They've clearly built a whole rig for that one shot.
Yeah.
You can only use it once. Like, imagine every death had that. Like, we've paid for it, we're going to use it. Yeah. And they save it as well. They save it for Voight, and it's
so we talk about that death and the recoming, whatever you want to call it.
The regurgitating.
It is the cherry on an already perfect film. That it's just, they just go all out, don't they? Like they've. I sometimes feel like they wrote that scene and worked backwards.
Yeah.
Well, for those who've not seen it, I mean, spoiler alert, but the bit we're discussing is Voight's character is it comes to a very sticky end, as you would hope, being swallowed, crushed and then swallowed. But then later on, as the Anaconda fancies a bit of Ice Cube, he's regurgitated. Am I right?
Yeah.
Is it Ice Cube he wants?
I think so, yeah, because there's Ice Cube and J-Lo in the the old mill, isn't there?
Yeah, so he's regurgitated up quite well. It's like some sort of Olympic event, isn't it? It's like a
snake luge,
and on his knees, and he does a little half kind of stomach acidied wink, does he, to Jennifer Lopez?
But it's so in his character. Like, it's so like you see that and you go, yeah, that's Cerrone. That's what he'd do.
Still trying to seal the deal.
But again, it ties into that whole like Ahab vibe, doesn't it? That he has something like the creature has to get him. It's always that self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't it? It's Quentin Jaws, Samuel L. Jackson. I guess
he doesn't turn up in the sequel, does he? I mean,
I don't know. Is it?
Don't know if he's dead.
I've never watched Anaconda Blood Diamond. I can't bring that, because again, like, I know this is a bad film, but it is so good at the same time, and I don't want to like ruin it with something that doesn't have the sort of joy and passion that this one is. Like, I'll fight for this film so much as a
No fighting required, Matthew. You've got a golden ticket anyway as a special guest. So thanks so much for coming on and sort of defending the honour of this massive snake flick. It's been absolutely brilliant, isn't it? And it's such a good watch.
Oh, I just hope that someone's listened to this and they've never watched it, and I just want. I would love to watch this for the first time. There's a list of films where I just would love to see something for the first time again, and I would love. I'd have to be the same age I was and stuff, but to relive this.
It's on Netflix, people, so jump on that while you can, which is always nice. Where can we catch you, and what can we see you doing or hear you doing?
I'm usually throwing a load of silly stuff out on Twitter. I've got into a habit at the moment. My lockdown thing has become trying to recreate TV credits using just stock footage, which is it fills a day. But yeah, I'm always making little stupid things or putting stuff out. Twitter's usually the one, Matt Highton. If you want something more wholesome and just pictures of my cats and wives, it's Matt Highton on Instagram. I said wives then. I meant wife. I meant wife. We kind of see all my wives.
If we were to draw a graph of my process, of my method, something like this. Sir Ian, action. Wizard, you shall not pass! Cut! Sir Ian.
So yeah, if you enjoy the podcast, then don't forget to come on, like and subscribe. We also started up a Patreon to see if we can pay a server bill or two. So don't be afraid to subscribe to that. And that's it. And we'll see you again soon when we do this again with another guest or just me and Chris. We find an interesting and wonderful film for you to pick on. Isn't that right, Chris?
Wow, that was beautiful.
Eh?
Yeah, great. Thanks again, Matthew.
Thanks, guys.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.